कथामृतं तप्त जीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमंगलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भूरिदा जनाः. Dear devotees, I have been called to deliver the Swami Gitanandaji Memorial Lecture. I deem it an honor to be selected to do so. On this occasion, I would like to speak on the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. I have chosen this subject mainly because Swami Gitanandaji Maharaj, former Vice President of Ramakrishna Math and Ramakrishna Mission, was a great lover of Bhagavata Purana. He has written Bhagavad Katha in Bengali, which I got translated into English and published it in an elegant manner when I was the president of Advaita Ashram, Mayavati. Every year, I remember, revered Gitanandaji Maharaj used to give lectures on Srimad Bhagavatam for 3 consecutive days during Rasa Purnima and one day on Janmashtami day in the main temple of Sri Ramakrishna at Belur Math. He was full of devotion to Lord Krishna and his lectures were very absorbing. While I speak on this holy book, let us make ourselves pure by hearing the glories of God and be blessed by tasting the bliss of Bhagavata. The Bhagavata is believed to have been told by Lord Narayana himself to Brahma, the creator. This lamp of knowledge is said to have been passed on by Brahma to his son Narada, by Narada to Vedavyasa, by Vedavyasa to his son Shuka, and by Shukadeva to King Parikshit, who was under the curse of imminent death. The Srimad Bhagavatam is one of the greatest books of bhakti in our tradition. Immensely popular all over India, it has inspired poets, artists, saints and philosophers. It has 12 skandhas or books with 18,000 verses in all. Its subject is pure love and how we can acquire it. It contains stories of saints and sages that illustrate love in its various forms. The greatness of this scripture is that it reconciles bhakti with jnana. That's why Sri Ramakrishna used to say, it is fried in the butter of knowledge and steeped in the honey of love. Seeing the importance of this book, we have brought out various versions of Bhagavatam in different languages from different publication centers of Ramakrishna Math and Ramakrishna Mission. In the very first verse of the Bhagavatam, it is said, if the universe has come from the Supreme Reality, it cannot be unreal. Yatra Trisargo Amrisha. Through the presence of that Supreme, the whole world ceases to be unreal. The universe is real only through the existence of that one reality in it. Because the God is there in the many, the universe is not real. As Sri Ramakrishna said, zeros have no value, but by adding the figure 1 becomes a 0. Its value, it gets value and it increases with the addition of every new 0. That 1 is equivalent to pure consciousness with respect to the universe of objects and events. The Bhagavatam glorifies that infinite One who alone makes the world real. It tells us to realize the Lord in our life and action. That Vishwarupa Dharshana, which Sri Krishna revealed to Yashoda and Arjuna, should not remain confined to Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita alone. It should become our daily experience. We have to find that one supreme in the many. Then the world of the many ceases to be unreal. In the first verse of the Bhagavatam, we read the one in whom the Trisarga, or the present, the past, and the future of the universe exists as real. We meditate upon that supreme truth, Satyam Param Dhimahi. In the third verse, it is said, this Bhagavatam is a ripe and juicy fruit, tasted by Shukadeva. Shuka is the son of Vedavyasa, the narrator of the book. It is an allegorical reference to say Shuka, from whose mouth the nectar of sweet fruit of the Bhagavatam comes out, and we are urged to drink the nectar of this fruit again and again. Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalay, Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam, Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavuka. Drink the Bhagavatam again and again, the very ocean of rasa. The Bhagavatam is a ripe and nectar-like fruit on the tree of Vedas, brought down by Shukadeva. Now let me tell you about the spiritual greatness of Shuka. Shuka, through his spiritual experiences, as mentioned in the Bhagavatam, has lighted Adhyatma Deepam, the light of spirituality. In this age of darkness and delusion, he offers us the lamp of spirituality to illumine our lives. He is constantly inviting us to come and drink the nectar of Bhagavatam. This he is doing out of compassion, not expecting that we will give him something in return. When Shuka was hardly 16 years old, he left his home and went into the forest. His father, Vyasa, ran behind him, loudly crying, "My son, my son." The trees and plants echoed his wail. As Shuka was going to the forest, a number of women, almost naked, were bathing in a pond. Shuka was passing by with no cloth on his body. The women noticed Shuka but did not feel shy. But when a little later old Vyasa reached there, completely dressed, the women immediately got out of the water and dressed themselves. Vyasa was very much surprised. He asked those ladies, "You never felt shy before a naked youth, but I am old, well dressed, and you feel so shy. Why is that?" The ladies replied, "O Vyasa, you have body consciousness, but Shuka has no consciousness of his body. So we had no body consciousness in his presence." Shukadeva was Atma Rama, one who delights in the Atman and was free from all bondages. The Bhagavatam is going to tell us about the subject of love from the lowest to the highest level. Indeed, love can have many dimensions. The highest dimension is love for love's sake, which is exemplified by three characters in the Bhagavatam. One such character is Shuka, and the other two are Prahlada and Dhruva. In the second chapter of the first skandha, the Bhagavatam describes the various steps in spiritual growth and how Sri Krishna purifies the hearts of those who take his name. He manifests in the hearts of those who hear about his divine play and erases all the evil tendencies in their spiritual development. When the evil tendencies are removed through constant service of holy men and the study of holy scriptures, one develops a steady and unshakable love for the Lord. With the growth of devotion, the mind is freed from the passions like greed and worldly pleasures. And lastly, when the Supreme Soul is thus realized within oneself, the knots of the heart are cut asunder, the doubts of the mind are dispelled, and all the accumulated karmas of the past are removed. In the third skandha, there is the story of an incarnation of the divine. There God came as Kapila, who wanted to leave home and go to the forest. His mother Devahuti said to Kapila, "My dear son, before you go, please give me some spiritual instruction." Thereupon, Kapila gives some spiritual instruction to her mother by saying, "I am always present in all beings as their very self. Insulting me there, if people worship me only in images, such worship is only empty show. Therefore, worship me in all beings through dana manabhya, through charity and respect, and with an eye of non-separateness." Kapila is teaching his mother that God is to be worshipped not only in a temple, not only in the image, but also in the hearts of all. Why? Because God dwells in the hearts of all. Over the centuries, we forgot this profound truth. We have to learn from Bhagavatam the true spirit of worship. And today, Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda have added a new dimension to this concept by preaching the worship of God through service to man. Now, let us narrate the touching story of Dhruva, who comes in the fourth skandha. Dhruva is the son of King Uttanapada, who had two wives, Suniti and Suruchi. Suruchi was his favorite wife. One day, when Uttanapada was sitting on the throne, Suniti's son Dhruva came and wanted to sit on his father's lap. But Suruchi, his stepmother, forbade him. She said, "You are Suniti's son. You have no right to sit on this king's lap. To get this privilege, you have to be born as my son. So pray to the Lord Hari and practice spiritual disciplines, and maybe it will happen in another life." Dhruva burst into tears and went crying to his mother, who also became afflicted with grief. Taking him on her lap, she then consoled him and said, "My dear boy, don't cry. The king does not care for me. Suruchi has rightly told you to worship Sri Hari with one-pointed devotion. There is no other way for you to get the favor of the king. Pour out your heart to Lord. He alone can take away your unhappiness." Dhruva had complete faith in his mother's words. Wasting no time, he set out for the forest, leaving the kingdom far behind. On the way to the forest, Dhruva met Narada. When Dhruva told him about his plan, Narada at first tried to dissuade him, since it is difficult to realize God. So, seeing the determination of the boy, he advised him to go to Madhuvan on the bank of the Yamuna river. Sri Hari is always there. Call on him with your whole heart and soul and repeat this mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narada's instructions sank deep into Dhruva's mind. After paying respects to Narada, he left for Madhuvan. There he practiced such intense meditation and austerities that even the gods became frightened. After 6 months of terrible austerities, Sri Hari became pleased with the boy's tapasya and revealed himself to him. Dhruva was overwhelmed with wonder and love. He threw himself at Sri Hari's feet, surrendering his entire heart and soul to him. Now he wanted to sing the Lord's praise, but he was a mere boy. He didn't know how. So Sri Hari touched the boy's cheek with his divine conch, which represents the Vedas themselves. And in a voice choked with emotion, Dhruva began to sing glories to the Lord. Sri Hari was pleased and said, "My dear Dhruva, you will ascend your father's throne and rule for a long time. And at the end of your life, remembering me, you will go to Dhruvaloka within the realm of Vishnu. And to this day, the Dhruva star shines bright in the night sky, reminding everyone of this great soul." The sixth skandha deals with the grace of the God and tells us the story of Ajamil, a great sinner who escaped from the clutches of death by his mere calling his son by the name Narayana, which is the name of the Lord. This shows the inherent power and holiness of the divine name. So by uttering God's divine name, even the most sinful, like Ajamil, will be redeemed from great sins. Another thing that fascinates me is the story of Daditi's gift and the killing of Vitrasura. Once, when Indra was in deep trouble, Lord Vishnu suggested him to get a Vajra or a thunderbolt made from the bones of Daditi, Rishi, by Vishwakarma. Daditi lived a very pure and holy life. He went into meditation, left his body, and gladly agreed to use his bones for the purpose. Thus could Indra kill Vritrasura with this Vajra and saved himself. It was possible for a high-souled rishi alone to sacrifice his life for the sake of others. What a wonderful sacrifice. Let us now deal with the seventh book of the Bhagavatam, where we find the fascinating story of the greatest devotee of God, Prahlada. Prahlada, the 5-year-old child of Hiranyakashipu, was absolutely pure and had imbibed love for God from birth. However, Hiranyakashipu was a dictator who hated all gods. He did not believe in any god. He wanted to bring up his child Prahlada in his own image. But Prahlada said, "Father, you are only a human being and will die one day. It is better to renounce this life and take refuge in Hari, who is supreme." This made Hiranyakashipu angry. He started persecuting this boy in all possible ways. He appointed a teacher to remove all these ideas about God from the mind of his son. But Prahlada's faith was so strong that when the teacher was away, he would ask his fellow students not to accept their teacher's false teachings. Instead, they should follow Bhagavata Dharma right from childhood. What is Bhagavata Dharma? It essentially constitutes seeing and serving God in oneself and in others. Ultimately, Nrsimha, God in the form of a man lion, came and killed Hiranyakashipu. Everyone was frightened at the sight of the fate of Nrsimha. The only one who was absolutely fearless, was the boy Prahlada. He smiled and prayed to Nrsimha to withdraw his anger and make his face softer. Sri Ramakrishna was fond of Prahlada's story and frequently referred to him in his talks with devotees, saying that in Prahlada we find pure love of the highest kind. Though the sannyasa ashrama is considered as the supreme station of human life, it is said that mukti can be attained even by a householder if he has deep-rooted devotion to the Lord. There are various themes and various personalities in this book, including animals, which illustrate the central theme of pure bhakti. One day, an elephant named Gajendra, who was the king of a great herd, came to bathe in the lake with other elephants. Seeing the elephants, a powerful crocodile came swimming over and caught Gajendra's leg. Gajendra tried his utmost to free himself, and seeing him in trouble, the other elephants also tried to help him. But the crocodile's grip was unrelenting. This battle between the elephant and the crocodile lasted 1,000 years. Astonished to hear what was happening, the Devas came to see the fight. Finally, Gajendra started praising the Lord. Suddenly, the Lord appeared before him. The elephant gently plucked a lotus with its trunk and offered it to the Lord and prayed, "O Narayana, I bow down to you." Pleased, the Lord ripped open the mouth of crocodile using his Sudarshana chakra. The elephant king was saved. The prayer of Gajendra to Vishnu is the quintessence of the path of jnana taught in the Bhagavatam. Then in the eighth book, the subject of Samudra Manthan, the churning of the ocean, is narrated. There we find gods and asuras have joined to churn the ocean. As the churning started, many good things as well as a tremendous poison, Kalakuta, came up. The gods became frightened because nobody could handle that poison that was burning the world. They went to Brahma for a solution, but he said, "Sorry, I can't do anything. This poison is too difficult for me." Ultimately, the gods decided to go to Mount Kailash, where Shiva lived, to seek his help. Shiva was in deep meditation, but he found everybody in distress. He became compassionate. He went to the ocean and saw how frightened the people were. He said, "I shall drink this poison. I may die as a result, but the world will be saved." As he swallowed it, his throat turned blue. Ever since, Shiva has been called Nilakantha, the blue-throated one. The churning continued. Now many divine gifts began to emerge from the ocean. First Kamadhenu, then a heavenly horse, then the elephant Airavata, then the jewel Kaustuba, and then the wish-fulfilling tree called Parijat. But the Devas and Asuras continued to churn the ocean. Heavenly Apsaras came next, and finally the most beautiful of all, Lakshmi Devi. All the Devas and Asuras lost their hearts to her, and all began to worship her with various gifts. Then Lakshmi herself began to look for someone to be her spouse. She thought, Some people like Durvasa practice spiritual disciplines but have not conquered anger. In some like Brahma and Chandra, there is elevation of soul, but they have not been able to conquer lust. In some there is knowledge, but they have not been able to rid themselves of desire, such as Shukracharya. In some there is dharma, but no compassion, such as Parshurama. Some have a long span of life, but are not attractive, like Markandeya. And then there are some like Sanaka, who have all the virtues, but will never marry. But Vishnu has all the virtues. There is no one like Vishnu. So Lakshmi decided to marry Vishnu. At long last, Dhanvantari appeared with a pitcher of nectar. The greedy Asuras immediately snatched it away and carried it off. The Devas then sought help from Vishnu, who assured them that he would retrieve the pot of nectar. He then took the form of Mohini. While beguiling the Asuras with sweet words, she distributed all the nectar to the Devas. The Devas became immortal by drinking nectar, but the Asuras failed to get any of it. So they were terribly angry. Led by their king Bali, they attacked the Devas, but after a long and terrible battle, they were defeated. Shri Krishna occupies the place of ultimate importance in Srimad Bhagavatam. Along with the story of Krishna, there are the stories of great devotees like Dhruva, Prahlada, Kapila and others. Then there are great characters like Vasudeva, Devaki, Nanda, Yashoda, Uddhava and the like connected with the life of Sri Krishna. A separate and special mention needs to be made about the gopis, the cowherd women of Vraja, who were the greatest embodiments of pure devotion for God, expressed in the form of mad ecstasy. In the narration of these stories, and especially in Krishna's exploits, we find combined the highest elements of bhakti and the loftiest reaches of jnana. Vyasa has given us the sweetest nectar through this Mahapurana. We are eternally indebted to him for this great work, without which the spiritual world would have been so poor and dry. The 10th skanda is the heart of the Bhagavatam, the theme being the manifestation of Vishnu as Krishna and his Leelas. This is the largest skanda in the entire Bhagavatam, consisting of 90 chapters spread over 3,946 verses. This is also the most popular portion of the Bhagavatam among the masses, to such an extent that for them this skanda alone is as good as the entire Bhagavatam. Among the various incidents, exploits, pranks, etc., described, the most controversial is the Rasalila, which is criticized as an amorous adventure of Krishna rather than going into the philosophic connotation behind the episode. Shri Krishna is the embodiment of love. To Yashoda, the god of love was her own baby Krishna. To shepherd boys, Krishna was their beloved friend. And to the gopis, Krishna was their beloved friend, lover and companion. When Shri Krishna played on his flute, the gopis forgot everything, unconscious even of their own bodies. They ran to him, drawn by his great love. Krishna, who gives delight to all and who is blissful in his being, divided himself into as many Krishnas as there were gopis, and danced and played with them. Each girl felt the divine presence and divine love of Sri Krishna. Each felt the most blessed. Each one's love for Sri Krishna was so absorbing that she felt herself one with Krishna, nay, knew herself to be Krishna. Swami Vivekananda warns us that we should not try to understand Rasa Leela until we have become perfectly chaste and pure. Lord Krishna has played various parts during his stay in the world. He drove the chariot of Arjuna. He was an unparalleled statesman. He was a master musician. He gave lessons to Narada in the art of playing the veena. The music of his flute thrilled the hearts of the gopis and all. He was a cowherd in Nandagaon and Gokul. He exhibited miracles even when he was a child and a boy. He killed so many Rakshasas. He showed Vishwarupa to his mother. He did Rasa Leela, the secrets of which can only be understood by devotees like Narada, Radha and the gopis. He taught the supreme truths of yoga, bhakti and Vedanta to Arjuna and Uddhava. This glorious chapter of the Bhagavatam ends with a statement that by constant and continuous practice of hearing, singing about and remembering the extraordinary deeds of the Lord, man's devotion to him grows day by day, and thereby he attains to the state of the Lord, overcoming the fear of death. The 11th skanda is the famous for its two subjects. Firstly, Bhagavata Dharma, as taught by the 9 sages, and secondly, Uddhava Gita. These two topics elaborately deal with bhakti, jnana and karma yoga, stressing at the same time the necessity for devotion. The main topic of discussion is moksha, the attainment of illumination and liberation from the cycle of samsara. This skanda ends with the final destruction of the Yadava clan, to which Krishna himself belongs, by fighting among them, as also the end of the Krishna avatars, when Krishna disappears after being shot at by a hunter. The main idea of the Bhagavatam is to establish the glory and greatness of Krishna and inculcate bhakti among devotees towards him. This completeness of the Krishna avatar made it possible to interpret the concept of Krishna in multifarious ways. One such view is that Krishna is not an incarnation of Vishnu, Bhagavan himself. The Bhagavatam says, while all the 24 avatars are the different parts of the Supreme Being, Krishna is the Bhagavan himself. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the full revelation of the Lord, while the others come from age to age for the relieving the world from the sufferings caused by the particular set of the Asuras. This view is opposed by the others who quote several verses from the other parts of the Bhagavatam itself, wherein Krishna is expressly declared as a part of Mahavishnu, the Supreme Being. Bhagavatam is a practical guide for all. It teaches that God alone really exists and that God realization is the be-all and end-all of life. It teaches us to realize God everywhere, always and in every situation in life. Sri Ramakrishna was very fond of Bhagavatam. One day, during the sadhana of Madhura Bhava, Sri Ramakrishna, while listening to the reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, went into ecstasy and had the vision of Sri Krishna. He saw a beam of light coming out of Krishna's feet and touching the sacred book, and it touched his heart and remained simultaneously touching all the three of them for some time. From this vision, he was convinced that all the three are one and the same thing. So he used to say, the three, the Bhagavata, the Bhakta and the Bhagavan are one, and the one is the three. In the end, I pray for the blessings of Sri Krishna for one and all.